Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Melissa Lee, and on behalf of Magnet Forensics and Teel Technologies, I'd like to welcome you to our webinar today on advanced smartphone forensics. So today we're joined by Jamie McQuaid and Typhoon Azun from Magnet Forensics. Jamie is our in-house forensics consultant, and Typhoon is our product manager who led the development of Magnet Acquire. I'd also like to introduce Bob Elder, who is the CEO and partner of Teel Technologies Canada. In this webinar, we'll discuss how digital forensics examiners can get the most data from mobile phones using a variety of different extraction methods, and also demonstrate how to load these images into Magnet IEF for in-depth analysis. Our host today will answer your questions in a live Q&A session after the presentation, so please submit your questions into the Q&A box in the GoToMeeting client during or after the presentation, and we'll do our best to get through. Is being recorded today and will be available for viewing at magnetforensics.com and teeltech.ca shortly after our session. I'll turn it over to Typhoon to begin our discussion.
Okay. Thanks, Melissa. Okay. So, short agenda here today. We're going to start with discussing some of the acquisitions you can do with Magnet Acquire, and from there, we're going to get into some of the advanced acquisition methods with Teel Technologies. Bob's going to walk through some of those techniques. After that, we'll show loading the images that you've acquired from these phones into IEF and some of the advanced analysis methods that we have in IEF. And like Melissa said, we'll do a Q&A at the end. So it's no surprise that a lot of investigations now have a lot of devices involved. We did a survey last year, I believe, and we found that 80% of investigations involves at least one mobile device. So this obviously poses a problem for examiners, and some of the challenges that we're seeing from our customers and in the industry are acquiring smartphone images, and once you have that image, recovering and analyzing the smartphone, the internet and app data. So many apps out there, and so many different types of devices that it's tough to keep up with this, doing it manually. So in the second half of last year, we released a product called Magnet Acquire, and it's forensic imaging for smartphones, and in December of last year, we added PC imaging as well. And Magnet Acquire is mainly designed to extract images from iOS and Android smartphones and tablets. And the goal is to be able to extract an image from any Android or iOS device. And we do this with two methods. Quick extraction will give you the most amount of data from the device that we can get. And this is designed to work on any Android and iOS device. The other option is full, and full requires having privileged access to the device. So this is either a jailbreak or a root for iOS and Android devices. And with this method, if you are able to root or jailbreak the device, we can extract a file system logical for iOS and a full physical for Android. One thing that's been kind of slowing down the ability to get full imaging from a device is the security patches that Apple and Google have been applying to their devices. And as we speak today, it's getting harder and harder to get root access on a device as compared to 2 or 3 years ago. You can see kind of here the iOS security timeline. The iPhone 4S is when they enhanced their hardware and encryption and basically stopped physical imaging of iOS devices. So that was kind of a pivotal point in iOS forensics. Full logical dumps of iPhones when you have jailbreak. Otherwise, we're kind of dealing with iTunes backups now and file relay, a bunch of logical type images. And as the years went on, they've added Touch ID, which allows you to use your fingerprint to unlock the phone, and it's just another piece of security that they've added. iOS 8 was actually another pivotal point in when they blocked the file relay service. And this blocked a bunch of data from examiners, and most notably the native email service on Apple. So files such as the envelope index or the protected index are now unaccessible for any device running iOS 8 or later. It also limited pin brute force options. And as the years went on, they've added patches to patch various jailbreaks and exploits that have been found in the devices. And right now we're at iOS 9.2.1, and they've patched the Pangu jailbreak. So again, it's getting very difficult to get any root access on these devices to extract physical images. And Apple does this for various reasons. Obviously, user privacy is #1 for them, as well as malware and software piracy. So the more they can reduce the amount of root access that people can get on these devices, it reduces the chance of malware getting in their ecosystem or people pirating software, which is a big part of their business, is the app ecosystem. So they're trying to protect that. Due to the difficulty of getting root access, there's a few things that are blocking us from getting full images, and that's, the device could be PIN or passcode locked, so this comes up a lot. We still have access to iTunes backups, which can yield a lot of data, but there's certain data that we want that's not included in a backup. And various apps can now choose whether they want their app to be backed up or not, and we have no control over whether or not we can get that data. And like I said, no roots or jailbreaks being available makes it even more difficult, which kind of leads us into some of Bob's work here, to take us through some of the more advanced ways to get data.
All right, so I'm just going to pass this over to Bob here, and he's going to continue on.
Thank you, Jamie and Melissa. So for my part of the discussion, I'm going to talk about the advanced techniques beyond what the tools can, sometimes are not able to get for you. Some of the cases where Mobilize or one of the other tools like Celebrate, where you can't actually get an acquisition for a number of reasons. It's not supported, the device is locked and USB debugging's turned off, or the device is damaged, if it's beyond repair, or if it can't be started up or booted up, then we have some options that we can help with that. So the functions or the processes that I'm going to talk about are starting with the flasher boxes, and I'm going to move to the bootloader system, and then I'm going to talk about JTAG quickly, and then I'm going to talk about ISP, in-system programming, and then I'm going to move on to the last one, which is chip-off. So the analogy that I like to use in mobile forensics is similar to, for those of you who are in law enforcement and are familiar with our force continuum that we have to deal with when we arrive at a scene and we're dealing with a suspect. We have a continuum or force continuum that we have to deal with. Depending on what kind of scenario we're getting involved in, will determine what level of force that we're going to use against the suspect. And that at the bottom end is our presence, our police presence, just us showing up in uniform, and at the very top is lethal force, which usually involves either a firearm or something, then the suspect getting killed. In our processes in mobile forensics, nobody's going to get killed, at least I hope not. So in the same manner, we have a continuum, what we call like a mobile forensics, advanced mobile forensics continuum, and we start at the lowest denominator, so the least intrusive and least destructive to the device that you're trying to examine. So we start at one at the bottom, and then we work our way through, and depending on what scenario you're dealing with and what type of phone you're dealing with and the condition will determine what level that you're going to start at. In most cases, everyone starts with the tools, Mobilize and all the other acquisition tools. And when those tools are not able to complete the acquisition or do the acquisition, then we move to the advanced techniques. And like I said earlier, the continuum that we use at Teel is we start with the flasher boxes, least intrusive. Then if that doesn't work, then we look at the bootloader process to see if the phone supports loading a custom bootloader, and I'll explain what all this is in a few minutes. Then the next level would be JTAG, which involves some soldering to the board. So now we're getting a little bit more intrusive to the exhibit. And then the next one would be ISP, in system programming, which again is soldering to the board. And then the final one, which was, in that force continuum with the police, lethal, would be chip off. So chip off is destructive to the exhibit. All the other processes are not destructive, but chip off is destructive. So that's our last resort. That's the last thing that we go to when we're dealing with the continuum for mobile forensics. So I'll start off with the first one, and that is the flasher box technique. So flasher boxes originally were put together 15, 20 years ago by the hacking community. And the reason why they put these boxes together is because they wanted to be able to unlock phones from one network to use them on another network. So say Verizon puts out a phone, they lock it to their network. Well, the flasher box function was to be able to go in there, make some changes to the phone so that you could unlock the phone and then use it on, say, AT&T. So during the functionality, they had to access certain parts of the phone, and by doing so, they were able to actually provide access to the memory. Back in those days, we were dealing with NOR and NAND memory, and the tools were able to access those memory devices on the board. So that's when we started using flasher boxes in its day. It was very popular with the flip phones, the brick phones, the slider phones. In some cases, the service part of the flasher boxes gave us access to the PIN code. So back in those days, there was a lot of 4-digit PIN codes on the flip phones and all that kind of stuff. Well, these tools were able to get us access to these PIN codes. Now the flasher boxes have evolved into the new style phones, the brick or the Android or the multimedia type phones, and are very, very resourceful for us. We're having a lot of luck with some of the tools like Octoplus, BST dongle, the Furious Gold is one option for those of you who are getting a lot of those Alcatel phones. This is the BST dongle. It's basically a dongle-driven software process where you plug the phone into the computer, and I'll show you a little demo right now of the Octoplus. So what I have is a LG D820 Nexus phone. It's locked. USB debugging is turned off. And so what I can do is I can plug the Octoplus into the computer, and then putting the D820 LG phone into what we call emergency mode, I'm able to access the phone, and I'll show you right now on the screen quickly. Just going to move the camera here. So if we have a look at the interface of the Octoplus box, we can see that we've got our D820 connected. If I select read phone information, it finds the phone, it actually identifies the flash and all that. And one of the options we have here is to dump NAND. So this is a locked USB debugging turned off, and just by selecting that, it initializes the flash, and then it allows me to provide an output of a file type. So we prefer to use the bin file, so we switch that to a bin, and we just hit save, and it'll save out your the full flash memory. It's very large, so it'll take quite a bit of time. But other functions of the box is unlocking. This is not unlocking in the context that we unlock the passcode. This is just unlocking from one network to another. So, but you can see in all the tabs we can root the device. In some cases, if there's a locked bootloader, we can unlock it. And with some of the phones, it'll actually say repair security, and this is where we will actually activate that process, and it will allow us to unlock the phone using any passcode. I'm back. So that's flasher boxes, and like I said, the Octoplus is one of the more popular ones that we're using right now, and it seems to support a lot of the phones that we're after. And this is what it looks like. It's basically just a little flasher box that we plug into the computer, and then we plug the phone into it, or directly into the computer. The next level in the force continuum for mobile forensics is what we call the bootloader process. Basically, with Android phones, they have, I found, between 16 and 28 different partitions on the device. And one of those partitions is actually called the boot partition. And using specialized software and techniques, we can actually access that boot partition and replace it with our own custom boot partition. These are usually found on sites like Twerp and Clockword, and the software that we use to load these things. One of them is called Odin, that is quite popular. And once we have that custom bootloader loaded onto the device, we can actually boot to that custom bootloader that we put there, and it'll look similar to this when we've got it all up and going. So if you can see, we have different options on the phone. There we go. And one of the options is for the backup. So the backup process allows us to back it up in a couple of ways. One, we could put a micro SD card in there, mount that micro SD card, and then do a full backup of the memory to that micro SD card. The other way to do it would be to netcat. Connect it to a computer using some command line commands. We can actually netcat into the phone and then dump right directly to the computer. Fairly safe process. Just be careful with the custom bootloaders that you're loading. You want to make sure it's the right one for the right phone, or you could brick the phone. But again, we're only playing around with the boot partition, so we're not affecting the user data partition where all the user data is. We're basically backing up that partition, but we're just manipulating the boot sector partition. So from there, we move to the next one where we start getting into the soldering process, and that is called JTAG, Joint Test Action Group. So how that became about is at the manufacturing level, phones are produced sort of like on like a treadmill or a mill, and basically all the components are soldered on, and that all the camera and everything has to be put into place on the board, on the PCB board. Once that's completed, they have to do some sort of a testing and make sure that everything's make sure that everything's communicating with everything on the board and everything's working properly. And they do that through a function called boundary scan or Joint Test Action Group JTAG. And basically what we have here is we have a device that this is a T6999, I believe. And if you see on the top here, right on the top, you'll see a row of pads right across here, just above the SIM card holder. Those are the taps, test access ports or points, depending on how you want to use the term. It is these points that the pins come down in the manufacturing level, connect to these things, and then they, using computers, they test all the components on the board. So in the same manner, we use that same process, and we can actually solder to the board. We can identify each of those taps, figure out what they are, and then connect it through to our RIF box. In this case, we're using a RIF box. There's other boxes, Z3X, GPG JTAG. There's a number of boxes out on the market. This one provides the best support right now, along with the Z3X. So once we have this all connected and to the computer, we can actually, through the interface of the RIF box, communicate directly with the memory chip through the controller, and then do a total dump from the device. In some cases, we have what's called Molex connectors as opposed to the pads. So the Molex connectors can be connected using a little thing called a MORC JTAG pin, and basically what this connects into the RIF box on this end, and through this ribbon cable we have a little plug, and that plug actually fits on top of this little Molex connector. We'll just zoom out here and see if it can focus for you. And then using this process, we can, in the same manner, connect it to the RIF box, and then from there we can do a data dump of the NAND thing. The RIPBox has some advanced features which allows us to look at all those partitions that I talked about earlier, and we can actually just go directly to the user partition and do a complete dump of the user partition. The next level after this is what we call ISP, in-system programming. In-system programming is a function of accessing the BGA chip on the board without actually taking the chip off the board. BGA chips all have all the pins underneath the BGA balls. If you can see, this is a BGA chip, and all the little balls there, the ball grid array, they all have functions, and some of those functions are data in, data out, and powering up the device and resetting the device and that kind of stuff. And so we are able to reverse engineer the phone from the BGA points and actually figure out where those points access on the outside of the chip. And in most cases we're dealing with soldering to resistors or capacitors to complete this function. So when you actually are done, you'll have something like this. So the Z3X is one of the boxes we use for this function called ISP, and we connect to the main board, which actually has a little port, a USB port, so that we can provide power to the chip to boot the chip, get it going so we can read it. And then we solder to a secondary board, and then it's a little difficult to see, but you can see, if it'll focus, you can see little hair wires, I think right there. Those little hair wires are actually soldered to little resistors and capacitors around the BGA chip that we're trying to access. And once we have those soldered in the right place and we can power up the BGA chip, we can then actually do a read. BGA chips, the new style chips, this only works on eMMC or eMCP style chips because those chips actually have the controller chip function within the chip. So all the mapping of the data and all that kind of stuff is done within the chip, as opposed to the old style chips, NAND and NOR, where that was all that function was all done through another controller chip separate from this one on the board. ISP, your skill set in soldering has to be pretty good, and you should have some precision soldering equipment like the JVC set that works very well. Wheeler also sells some good soldering tools for this function. The next level, and what we call the top of the force continuum, and it's the most destructive to the exhibit, is the chip-off process. So the analogy that I use when I go to court is when I'm examining a computer, I will actually grab the computer, take it apart, and remove the hard drive, and then image the hard drive, and then if required I would put the hard drive back in. If not, it would just become an exhibit. In the same manner, I'm doing the same thing with cell phones when I'm doing the chip-off process. So basically I have my motherboard that you would find on a computer. I've taken the phone apart, and this little square right here is the BGA chip, and I'm actually removing that, just like a hard drive. I'm taking this out, and this is where all the memory is stored. This is all where all the user data is stored. And then I'm using tools at my disposal, and one of those tools is a box called the UP828, which looks like this. And the UP828 is connected to the computer, and once I've figured out what chip I'm dealing with, I have to get a special adapter for that chip, and there's a number of adapters for the vast amount of chips that we're finding on the market. And then I place the chip into the template that you see below, and this is my pin 1, so I actually have it upside down. And then I close the door, and then on the interface, software interface, you will actually see the pins on there, and when they're all green, that means that I've got it positioned properly and that I can conduct a read, and it'll just do a full dump of the memory chip, just like imaging a hard drive. Sometimes you want to try other processes. Because I talked about the eMMC chip having its own controller chip within the chip itself, we can actually utilize tools like this. So what this is called the Sarita adapter. And if you see, it's just, if you were to look at it like this is basically an SD card. So as long as you have an SD card slot on your computer, or if you have an SD card reader, hopefully a right block one, you can actually put this chip inside this little pocket here, close the door, and then insert this into the computer in the SD card reader, and it will do a read. And you could use your favorite tools like FDK Imager or Incase or whatever tool you use to acquire computers, hard drives or thumb drives. You can use that tool to image this, ensuring that you have the right block in place. Just to go back one step, and with the ISP process and with the chip-off process too, we're able to read from the BGA balls underneath the chip itself. So we have another tool that we use, and it for ISP and for chip-off is called a coded, and it looks like a big tarantula. So I'm going to show you what it looks like now. And basically, it has a bunch of arms, and we can actually, those access points that we solder to with that hair wire in the ISP process, we can actually do the same function. So what we have here is a bunch of probes, and then the probes touch on the capacitor or resistors inside, outside the BGA chip. And then at the end of the probes, we have our connecting wires, and here we are with the SD card again. So we can actually make the connection and then plug this into an SD card reader, and then do the read of the chip while it's still on the board. We're also doing some experimentation where we're actually putting probing the chip, the BGA chips, directly, and we're having some luck with it, but more work needs to be done. But I mean, if you're not a soldering guy and you're intimidated by trying to solder those hair wires, this might be the solution for you, and it's called the coded. So that's basically the kind of the force continuum for mobile forensics, the way we kind of have things set up at Teel Tech. If you have any questions, give us a shout at info@teeltechcanada.com. We're really happy to answer any of the questions about any of the stuff that I talked about earlier. So back to you, Jamie and Melissa. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. We're going to take one of those images that Bob has created, and this is a JTAG image that he provided to me, and then we're going to take it and show you guys how to load that into IEF and analyze that. So again, we've overcome the challenges of the acquisition, and now we want to move over to the analysis part. Obviously, you can use many tools for this, but the value with IEF is that we'll automatically go in and pull out some of the most common artifacts and sources of evidence that you would normally look for in those images. So it looks like you guys can see my screen now, which is great. So what I'm going to do is, and again, anybody who hasn't used IEF before, this is IEF. This is how it looks like once you get it installed on your examination machine. We're going to take that JTAG image that Bob provided with us, and really it's just a bin file. It's a raw dump of the data of the phone, and we're going to load that into IEF here. So what I'm going to do here is go to mobile, and I-747, I believe, that Bob sent me here. So what I'm going to do is load it in. It's an Android device, so we're going to choose Android, and then we're going to choose images. So you can, and again, this is dependent on the extension. So we're going to choose images for this one, but depending on the extension of the file, and usually these are bin files, you can load these in as an image into IEF. If it's an extension that we don't support, if I pull down all files here, you can see we support a ton of different extensions and file formats. But if it's in a format that we don't support, you can still load it in under files and folders or as a file dump, and IEF will examine it in the exact same way. But you can see here we've got bin files as as a type of image. Like I said, any type of raw DD type image can be loaded in here. So I'm going to choose the i747 here, that is the bin file, and this is the image we're going to load in. It's the Android phone. So I'm going to choose that and hit open. And now IEF recognizes it. It recognizes the file systems, all the partitions there, and because of that, it's going to do a full search for us. IEF chooses a full search whenever it recognizes the file systems being examined. The full search is always going to be your most thorough search, so I usually recommend people leave it on the full search, but you do have a choice to do either a quick or a sector level search. The quick search is just going to look in the most common locations, and it'll save you a bit of time if you're pressed for time in your searches. The sector level search will default to if IEF didn't recognize any file system here. So basically what that means is IEF will focus on carving and keyword searches to extract any evidence that might be on the image. So even if it's a phone we don't support, you can throw it in here, do a sector level search, and it will still pull out relevant data for you, like pictures, video, web URLs, or anything like that. So even if it's a device we don't support, you can still get some data from it. But this is an Android phone, and we do support that. So you can load it in. It's going to do the full search, and we're going to leave it on the full search for our example here today. I'm going to hit OK. And then it gets queued up here in our search, and we actually still have these 5 buttons across the top. So one of the nice features of IEF is that you can actually analyze multiple devices, multiple phones, or a computer and a phone, or depending on what you have for your case, you can analyze all of that together. So this is a nice way to really look at everything for your case, whether you've got a suspect that's got a phone and a computer, you can analyze that all together. For today, we're just going to load in that the one phone here, and that's going to be the focus of our investigation here. So I'm not going to add any other images here, and I'm just going to hit the next button down below. The next page here is the artifacts page, and the artifacts page, depending on what type of evidence you load in, you will see different artifacts here on this page. We loaded in an Android phone, so you see we'll search for on this phone. It doesn't mean they're all here. It just means that this is what everything that IEF is going to look for on this phone. This is everything that we support for Android. If you loaded in an image from an iOS device, you would see iOS. Windows computer, you would see the Windows artifacts here. So it's totally dependent on what types of evidence you load in. But like I said, we've got an Android phone here, so we're going to look for Android artifacts. I'm not going to spend too much time going into every artifact here. I'll call you, but you can see we've got plenty of chat programs like Skype, Kick Messenger, WhatsApp, Telegram. You can see we've got some cloud artifacts like Dropbox, documents like Office documents, PDF documents, text, RTF, that type of thing. Client emails from the native email client, as well as any potential webmail data. So if the user was using a browser and going to Gmail or Yahoo or something like that, you'll see that as well. Obviously, pictures, video are really important to a lot of investigators, so we'll parse and carve pictures and video for you and include that in your case, Snapchat as well. Then we have the OS artifacts. So this is your native apps that come with most phones. You'll get contacts, call logs, SMS messages, installed applications, really nice list of details here. P2P activity, obviously, social networking, and Facebook, Twitter, Whisper, those types of apps, social networking apps we'll search for as well. And then finally, you have your browser web-related stuff, Chrome, Firefox, Google searches, Google Maps, any sort of browser-related activity is found below. So by default, everything is selected. IEF will search for everything, but you can pick and choose. It's completely up to you. I can uncheck these, and if I just want to look for Chrome and Firefox, I can choose those individual ones. Or if I want to choose an entire category, I can double-click the web-related here. I can double-click it again to remove it. I'm just going to leave everything checked off because you never know what evidence you're going to find in a particular location. You might not have known to look in Twitter or a particular browser or something. So I always find it good to search for everything. You can always filter out stuff you don't need afterwards or that might not be relevant to your case. From here, like I said, we're leaving everything checked off, so I'm going to hit next. And now we get the case information. Case information, pretty straightforward. You need to give it a destination path and a case folder name at a minimum. You can assign it case numbers. So depending on how you set up your case numbers, examiner names, that sort of thing can be easily set up here. From here, you can also set up keyword search alerts. So there's two ways to actually run keyword searches with IEF. You can set it up before the processing begins, or afterwards you can run keyword searches in the report viewer as well. So it's totally up to keyword searches. If you have a list beforehand, you might want to load it in and include it in your processing. If you have that list and you want to set up beforehand, all you need to do is check this box and hit configure. And you can add individual keywords, or you can add a keyword list if you've got a larger list. This is a line separated text file. You can load, analyze it across during that process. Or email alerts to notify you when those keywords have been identified. So if you're in the room but you're interviewing a suspect and you're not watching the computer, you can actually set the audio alerts to notify you, or you can actually also set up an SMTP server to send you an email, and you don't even have to be in the room to do so. And obviously you need to have an internet connection on your examination machine for the email server to work, but it works quite well to set up that server. I'm not going to add any keywords here today. One other thing I wanted to quickly mention is from here you can also add hashes. So if I go to Tools, Hash Sets, you can do either media or file hash sets. We have plenty of to spend too much time on it, but if you'd like to go through and either whitelist known non-relevant files, you can use file hash sets, or if you're doing any sort of child exploitation and you want to use media hash sets to hash and compare pictures, the media hash sets work quite well. From here, we assume we've got all our case ready to go and loaded up. We would hit the Find Evidence button down here at the bottom, and our case would begin processing. As that starts processing, this screen would disappear, the processing window would pop up, and it would start searching through our case. Another nice feature of IEF is that as that goes through, you can either choose to let it go and come back when it's done and analyze your entire case, or if you're pressed for time and you want to start analyzing results immediately, it'll start populating the report viewer for you in real time and give you those results. So both options are available to you. It's just up to you and what method you want to choose. So we've already got the results for this case already done and ready to go. So I'm going to open up report viewer here and just let us take a quick look at the results. So this is IEF report viewer, and again, the layout to look at all the results we found. At the top here, we've got the I-747 image that Bob provided with us, and we can go through and we can see that this is everything that IEF has found for this phone. Lots of stuff just from that raw image, lots of really good details. You've got chat, cloud, documents. You see all these same categories as we saw previously, except here at the top, you might want to call this one out specifically. It's called the IEF refined results. This wasn't in the artifacts page, but it's worth mentioning. So basically what you see here is the refined results are results that IEF has picked out specifically because they might be important to your case. Now, it depends on the type of case you're working. These refined results are found in other artifacts. Maybe they're found in Internet Explorer, if it was a PC, if it was in Chrome, it was in Firefox, it was in the cache records. It could be anywhere, but we consolidated them here because they might be important. So if you were working an IP theft case, we would look at cloud service URLs, and we can see there's plenty of Dropbox hits here. If you were looking at thefts or anything like that, you might want to look at classified ads. We can see that there's a number of Craigslist and eBay and Amazon pages that were looked at. Again, these totally depend on the type of case you're working, but it's a really nice central location to look at particular artifacts. And we can see if we look at some of these, we've got a Craigslist hit here, and this one came from the Android Chrome bookmarks. We've got some other eBay ones that came from the Chrome history. So again, it comes from all over the case, but we consolidate them in one spot for you. You can also see we've got plenty of other categories here, like Google searches. I know I've never worked a case where Google searches was not important to my investigation. It really gives you a good indication of so you can get a really good idea of what they were using their phone or computer for in this case. So we can see there's quite a few Google searches here, and again, IEF will pull that from pretty much anywhere on the drive. You can see we've got the search term, the timestamps, the actual URLs here from Google. Really nice set of ad activity. We can get all the metadata for it down here below, but you also have the view options as well. So viewing the hex, obviously, for a PDF document isn't the greatest. We give you the majority of the details, including any metadata. But if you can also preview the document here to load up here, but you can actually preview what the document looks for, and this is a mobile bill for the user here, that's the suspect that we were examining. Continuing on, again, email, we'll pull some really good stuff out of Gmail. You get a lot of different email artifacts, pictures, video, some of that mobile account information, call logs. If we take a look here, there's quite a few call logs that have gone incoming and outgoing call logs, Wi-Fi profiles, installed applications, lots of different, these are all the installed applications on the phone, not just the ones that IEF supports. So you can see that there's quite a few applications here. So this gives you a nice summary of everything that was installed on the phone, and it gives you the version numbers and everything you need for that. Social networking, you've got plenty of Facebook details here, which is really good. Lots of Facebook contacts as well. I always find that looking at the text this way in Facebook messages isn't the greatest. So this is one thing that chat threading is really good for. If I open up the chat threading button down here, IEF will present this in a much nicer way for you to present your data. So we've got some SMS and the Android Facebook messages, and if I can select these, you can see that we can actually see some of the conversations and chat conversations as they were going through here. The Android Facebook messages as well, and you can see there are plenty of different conversations for this this user. We can see that there's a nice visual way to see how the actual user might have seen it in the application. I find this is a really nice view that you can use in terms of presenting to any of your stakeholders, whether that's a judge, a jury, lawyers, whoever you're presenting to. This works very very well. Okay, as we continue on here, removing the chat threading, I'm gonna keep going with the web-related stuff, the Chrome bookmarks. We can see there's quite a few bookmarks here. That some of these, be careful that some of them are user-created, some of them are come default with Android Chrome or any other browser that you're using. So you need to be careful which ones came by default and which ones the user created. Usually it's pretty obvious with the timestamps and the actual URLs. You should be able to tell which ones the user created and which ones they didn't. But generally, you can see there's quite a few bookmarks that were created by this user. And then you can also see the entire Chrome history here as well. So lots of different Chrome history to go through. Additionally, another nice feature about mobile devices is there's a lot of geolocation data gets saved for mobile devices. In general, it'll depend if the location services is turned on for the device, but for the most part, it is. We have a timeline and world map features which helps you visualize a lot of that stuff. So let me open up world map here just to kind of give you an idea. And let me just open it up. This is IEF World Map. And basically what this does is it'll take all the geolocation data and GPS coordinates that you would normally look for and maps it out in a nice, easy to read manner. So we can see we've got 72 hits here, and I'm going to zoom into a couple of them here. We've got out in Vancouver Island here, so I'm going to take a closer look. We can go into these 5 here, and this zooms right in really close to this location. And if I select one of these, we can see these are some of the same Android Facebook messages that the user had sent. And if I select these 4 here, we should be able to get a nice view of all the Android Facebook messages that were sent from that exact location at that time. Android Facebook messages store geolocation data, which is really nice for us. So a really nice presentation tool that you can actually use to map that out and present that to anybody that you might be presenting to. You can see along the left here, these are all the artifacts that have geolocation data that IEF will look for. Lots of Android and iOS devices here, EXIF data from pictures, as well as plenty of other places as well. So we'll pull geolocation data from pretty much anywhere we can, but you can see the nice list here, and you can pick and choose what you want to include. You might have noticed that this does use Google Maps APIs in order for it to work, so you do need an internet connection on your examination machine for it to work, which is fine. Some people don't have an internet connection on their examination machine. You can use this still as well, but it requires an extra step. Basically, what you can do is install Google Earth. You can cache all the pages that you would require for it, and then go up to File here, export all the KMZ, and then import that into Google Earth, and it does not require an internet connection. You can still see the same results that we have here. So really nice way to kind of visualize a lot of that. And again, if you don't have an internet connected examination machine, you're still not completely out of luck. So I wanted to stop there because I wanted to open it up. I know there's a lot of questions here. There's a lot of other features in IEF that I didn't touch on, but it looks like there's a lot of questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip back to the slides here, and Typhoon, myself, and Bob are going to answer as many questions we can in the remaining time. All right. So let's take a look here, and I'm going to just distribute the questions as best I can here. So here we go. All right. The first question is, does Acquire work on other brand phones? I'll let Typhoon answer that. He can answer what we support and what we don't.
Okay, so yeah, Acquire today only works on iOS and Android phones. Now, Android covers a wide range of devices, so we've seen Samsung, Huawei phones, any Android device that you can think of. If it's running Android, it should be able to acquire it. And recently, like I said, in December, we released Acquire PC, which also does hard drives, SSDs, removable media, USB sticks, stuff like that. So no other types of phones at this time.
Thanks, Dave. Next question's for Bob. Does Teel sell their products to non-law enforcement? So there was a couple of questions on that. Yeah, I guess that's probably one you can answer well.
Yeah, so we have offices in Norwalk, Connecticut for the U.S. market and Victoria, BC for the Canadian market. We sell all the products that you see in this lab or are featured in this presentation, and we do sell to non-law enforcement, yes.
Perfect. Thanks, Bob. The next question's for you as well. Do iOS devices have taps allowing JTAG?
We are aware of taps that can access certain areas of the iPhone from schematics and that kind of stuff, but the problem is the CPU. The JTAG is dependent on the CPU, and communicating through the CPU at this point is not possible with JTAG. Apple owns the company that manufactures the controller chips, and getting those schematics are very difficult. So no.
Okay, thank you. Next question's for Typhoon. Does IEF recover deleted files?
Yeah, so IEF will carve deleted data from unallocated, from deleted space in the SQLite database and stuff like that. In general, it will recover deleted documents and media, but if it doesn't fit into one of our categories in IEF, currently we don't recover just files. It will do its best to carve deleted data.
Okay, thanks. The next one's for Bob. Is there a resource available that depicts PAP and ISP access points for the various brands of mobile devices?
So there's two resources. One is the actual tools themselves. When you install the software, they actually have pinouts for a lot of the more popular devices that you'll come across. And then the other resource would be the physical mobile Google group, where those things are all shared by experts in the field.
Perfect, thank you. Next one I'll have Typhoon answer. Magnet Acquire will only get a logical image of an iPhone if it's not jailbroken. Can you recommend a product that will get a full physical image of an iPhone and allow that image to be loaded into IEF Mobile for processing?
Yeah, so that's a bit of a challenging situation. Like I said, anything after iPhone 4S, physical imaging went away. So even if you were able to get a physical image, it would be encrypted. So I don't know if, Bob, you have anything to add to that?
No, that's correct. The data is stored encrypted on the newer iPhones from, I believe it's 4 or 4S and above. So the unallocated space is encrypted in that case.
Yeah, and I believe before the iPhone 4, various mobile forensic tools out there can get a physical image using DFU mode. I believe Celebrate's probably one of them. But anything newer than iPhone 4, which is really likely in today's world, is impossible.
Okay. Let's see here. Is the Facebook message data coming from Facebook messages inside the browser format or Facebook, or do they originate from the Facebook Messenger app? Type, you can probably answer that.
So we recover both. Depending, I'm not sure exactly what was on that device.
This one was from the app.
Okay, so this one was specifically from the Facebook Messenger app. You may have seen it. I think the database is called Orca2. It comes up a lot. But we do support the Facebook web browser as well. So things from memory, page file, hybrid file on PCs, yeah, and possibly in the browser history.
Okay. The next question is for Bob. What tools used with the spider leg points? I think they're just looking for a bit more explanation on that.
On this thing here, this is called the Coded. It's resell it here in North America, and basically, like I kind of explained, the EMC chips, when we connect them to a computer using either an SD card slot or another kind of connection, it acts just like a micro SD card. We're just creating the function of an SD card, and so any of your computer forensics tools, FTK Imager, or whatever tool you use to image, will do the imaging for you, and you can save it in whatever format.
Perfect. Thanks, Bob. The next one I'll pass to Typhoon. They had a question around documentation for physical acquisitions. Since every phone is different and has different methods, how much detail do you go into as far as a mobile device when you do the acquisition reporting? That might be something that Typhoon and Bob can answer, but we'll start with Typhoon.
Yeah, so I can speak to Magnet Acquire. Any image done in Magnet Acquire, a quick or a full extraction, will give you a detailed activity log of everything we communicated with the device for. So specifically in the full imaging or physical imaging, if we had to use an exploit to get root access on an Android phone, we'll explain what exploit was used in the activity logs with timestamps and show what files we had to transfer to the device to enable that. And basically any activities, anytime we interact with the device, we log the time and what we did. That way it's easily traceable. Unlike PC is pretty straightforward, doing a bit-for-bit copy of a drive, but on mobile there has to be some interaction with the device and the operating system, so we log everything that we possibly can.
Thanks. The next one is, what's the difference between parse search querying and Google searches in IEF? I can answer that one really quick. Google searches is just that. It searches using the Google search bar or searching. Parse search queries is any other type of search like Bing or Yahoo or whatnot. We have a specific one for Google just because we can pull some additional details out of it, but then we group all of the other search queries into parse search queries. Originally, when we first built it, we had Google and all of the other ones in under parse search queries, but we separated the Google ones out because for one, it gave us more information, we allowed it to present more information, but it also eliminated a lot of false positives that way as well. So it's certainly better now that we have it separated from Google searches and parse search queries. The next one goes to Typhoon. Can acquire images be verified or brought up with other tools like Celebrite or Oxygen?
So acquire images, we took the approach to keep them standard and not proprietary. So images are either contain an ADB or a tar file, or for IFS backup and gzip files. So any one of those files can be parsed by the other tools that support iTunes backups, ADB backups, Celebrite and Oxygen being the other tools that do support that. So the interoperability for acquire images is pretty wide in terms of tools.
Yep. And just to follow up on that, can Celebrite acquisitions be brought into IEF?
Yeah, so definitely. So depending on the type of image you get from Celebrite, sometimes, like I said, you'll get an iTunes backup, which is their advanced logical methods. And if you get a full image from UFED Touch or UFED 4PC, IEF will have no trouble parsing that.
Perfect. And there's a few of them here for you, so you can just keep going. Can IEF find deleted kick messages, including any images?
Yeah, so IEF will recover deleted kick messages in various ways. So in general, if you only have a logical image, we'll carve deleted kick messages from the SQLite free list, which is SQLite actually maintains the deleted records in the database unless the database is vacuum, but usually you find messages in there. And pictures, IEF will run its picture carver on any file you throw at it. So if that phone has pictures in unallocated space or in the database's unallocated space, we'll pull out those pictures.
Perfect. The next one's for Bob. One of the listeners, a few of them were having some audio issues, but they were wondering if you could rehash really quickly what were the different types of flasher boxes that you used and you presented early on there. Just give us a summary on which ones you had mentioned.
So the flasher boxes, if you want like the full gamut, there's probably about 200 different ones out there. But right now, the ones that we're seeing for the phones that we're dealing with in North America and some of the European markets, the most popular ones is this one here, which is called the Octoplus. It's a combination of a JTAG flasher box device, and it's good for a lot of the LG and Samsung phones. And this is a called DST dongle, and very good product, and supports a lot of the phones that we see currently. And recently we've been seeing a big influx of Alcatel phones and those types of phones. And in those cases, this is what we're getting people to buy. It's called the Furious Gold, and it provides all those functions of reading the bin or bypassing the password. Beyond that, it depends on the phone that you're getting. So there's flasher boxes that are dedicated just to Chinex phones. There's some that are dedicated to some of the Chinese, or sort of the European style phones, the Huawei and Alcatels and all that. So it depends on your phones. If you let us know what phones you're running across, we'll be able to better tell you what tools to get.
Perfect, thanks. So we're out of time, guys. I know there's a whole lot of our questions, but feel free. There's our email address is up there. Feel free to reach out to any one of us or all of us and ask your questions. I'm going to pass it over to Melissa just to finish everything up.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for attending and participating today. So if you haven't already tried Magnet IEF, we'd like to offer you a free 30-day trial, and we encourage you to try it on any new or existing cases that you have. So to download your trial, just visit magnetforensics.com/trial, and you can get access to that today. So this session was recorded, as I mentioned earlier, and it will be available for viewing at magnetforensics.com and teeltech.ca. And this concludes our presentation today. Thank you, everyone.